Hi, I'm Tony Genovese. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a psychotherapist. And welcome to my video, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Therapy But Were Afraid to Ask. Well, transparency right here. I really can't talk about everything you ever wanted to know about therapy but were afraid to ask. So I can only cover like a little piece of that. But I love the title, so I thought I would put it out there. And what I did do was I asked people in my community if they had questions about therapy and if I could answer them. And I got a whole bunch of questions. And what I did was I looked for some themes in those questions, and I chose two general questions that I wanted to tackle today. So we can't cover everything, but we can cover some of the things today. And hopefully you'll come back and ask me some more questions, and then I can answer them for you. And maybe one day we really will cover everything you ever wanted to know about therapy, but were afraid to ask. So one of the questions, or one of the themes to the questions, was about, how do I know if therapy is right for me? Or how do I know if I really, really need therapy right now? And that's a really great question. And I'm glad when people ask that question, because it tells me that they're really taking some time to focus on themselves and to think about what's working and what's not working in their lives. So I think what's really important is to first listen to that inner voice inside you. And if there's a little voice inside of you that's saying, help, then that might be a good indication that therapy might be something that could be beneficial for you. The other thing that you can look at, maybe you're not really in tune with that little voice that's saying help, or you're really not sure about that, is to look at your behavior. What is happening in your life? What is, if you're asking whether or not you need therapy, something might be a little unsettling. And it might be some of the behaviors. Maybe you're not acting the way that you used to act. Maybe you're sleeping more than you usually do. Maybe you are sleeping less than you usually do. Perhaps you're eating more or less, feeling fatigued, losing interest in some of the things that are around you. You could be feeling really on edge, and maybe you're reacting very quickly when you don't usually do that. Crying over the proverbial spilled milk, like the small things that maybe didn't bother you before, maybe they're becoming bigger and unmanageable for you. So looking at your behaviors, that's another piece of the puzzle that can tell you whether or not it's time to get help. And I think the third thing, and one of the most important things, is what are people around you saying? Are people really noticing a change in your behavior, a change in you, and saying, hey, maybe it's time to reach out and get help? You want to start listening to people who are saying that. You may be really in a place where you're not noticing what's going on, and some people that you trust and love and care about are giving you some insight. And oftentimes, people come into my psychotherapy practice saying things to me like, well, I didn't really think I needed to be here, but my friend, my spouse, my partner said, I think it would be helpful for you to go. And we start from that place. And that's an okay place to start. You may not identify anything as being a problem yet, but that's what therapy is there for. It's part of a growing and communicating and understanding ourselves better. So at the very least, you get to understand yourself better. And at the very best, you get to improve your life and feel better. So those are the three things I would think about if the question pops up in your mind. Do I need therapy right now? Do I feel like that little voice inside is saying help? Do I notice a change in my behavior? Do other people notice a change in my behavior? Those three things, either any one of those or all three together, can be a signal that it's time to reach out to get help. And we want to reach out before things get really, really bad, when our behaviors may be such that we can't take things back, or we've done irreparable damage in our lives or somebody else's lives. So that's really important. The other question that, or the other theme that came up a lot was, what do I do if I think someone is suicidal? That is a really heavy question, and that's a really important one to answer. People usually think that if they ask someone if they're suicidal, that the question, saying the word suicide, will make that person want to kill themselves. Well, that is not true. Asking a person if they're suicidal is not going to cause the person to be suicidal. It's not like you're going to ask and they never had that thought before, and all of a sudden you implanted the thought in their mind. That's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, that just because you ask them, they'd say, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about suicide as being an option, but now that you mention it, sure, yeah, I think I'm going to go do that. I'm being totally facetious here, but I want to really blow up the point that if somebody is suicidal, it is really important to ask them, and that asking them is not going to create a situation where they are going to go ahead and kill themselves. It's important to be direct with someone who's suicidal and literally ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about committing suicide? Why is it important to be direct? Well, if your language is not direct, you're essentially telling them you are not feeling comfortable with the subject, and there's really nothing you're going to do to help them, which may make them feel more helpless. So it's really important to take control, to ask the question straight up and directly, are you thinking about committing suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? And give them an opportunity to answer you. If they want to get help, they are going to say, yes, I am suicidal, and yes, I need help. Unfortunately, there are going to be some people who might lie to you about that, but most people who are suicidal are going to tell you the truth and are really wanting to get help. I'll talk a little bit about the other population that's gonna lie and say, no, I'm not going to commit suicide, and then try to commit suicide in a minute. But what's important is that once somebody is identifying that they're having suicidal thoughts, you want to check to see if they have a plan. Are they blowing off steam and saying, oh, God, I just wish I was dead, or gosh, I wish I wasn't on this planet anymore. Check in. Make sure that what you're hearing is that they're suicidal and not that they're just angry or upset and using a different way of expressing that. And then ask them if they have a plan. If they say, yes, I am thinking of killing myself, yes. Do you have a plan? What would you do? And see if they have a plan. That piece is really important to understand, because then we want to know what we can do next to take care of them and to help them. You have a lot of options. You can go to an emergency room with them. Usually emergency rooms will have people who are psychiatric screeners who are either on premises or on call, and they can get someone there to do the screening, to admit the person if the person needs to be admitted. You can call police, you can call an ambulance. I think that going to the emergency room is probably one of the best things you can do. If they're already working with a therapist, can you help them get to see their therapist if that's an option and that's available to them? So identify whether or not they're suicidal. If they have a plan, get them help right away. If you feel that you are failing in doing any of those first two things, or you're not sure about asking the questions, then you can never fail by getting them help or finding a way to get them help. When in doubt, it's better that you get help than don't. It's better that you get help and somebody says, oh no, this person's really not suicidal, rather than what the option might be. So the people who will lie to you, the people who will say, absolutely not, I'm not going to hurt myself, when you straight up ask them, and then they go ahead and they do. we have to understand that there are some people that we're not going to identify. There are going to be some people who, even when asked straight up, are going to lie. That I would still follow up with the question: if there's a plan, is there something else going on? If you suspect. The other thing is to see. There's some behaviors that happen when people have made a decision that they're going to commit suicide that are the opposite of what you think that are going to that's going to happen, that you really need to watch out for. So someone who has been really extremely sad, they tell you they're not suicidal, but then all of a sudden they are happy. They are going out with friends. They are buying gifts or giving things that they have in their personal possession to people. They're gifting them with their personal stuff. These are the folks to be extremely, extremely careful with and to get help for right away. The reason they're really happy, they go from being really, really depressed to being happy, is not because they're feeling better. It's usually because they've made a decision and their plan is set and they know that they've marked it in their mind or their calendar that they've chosen a day that they're actually going to commit suicide. And they have it all planned out. These are not folks who are doing it on the spur of the moment. So we have to be really careful. They're giving stuff away because they want to give part of themselves to someone. They start giving gifts. They spend a lot of money on people, or they go out and they enjoy people, but they start looking like they're feeling better. And the only reason they're feeling better is they know what the plan is and they know what they're going to do. So I really caution you, if you feel like there's someone in your life who has been really down and all of a sudden they feel really happy and you're like, oh great, they're really happy, I'm really happy for them, this is a good thing. Sit down with them and talk to them and try to figure out how to get them help, because those might be the people who really, really need your help. Those are the people who might really have the plan and really have the focus to actually complete the suicide, not just attempt it, but to complete it. So those were two really important questions that came up when I asked for questions, and I really wanted to cover them today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, I would love it if you left a comment, if you shared it. Come visit me at www.strongatthecore.com. See my website. I also have a Facebook page. We would love to have you come on over. It's Strong at the Core Connections. It's a closed Facebook group where we talk about some of these topics. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a psychotherapist. I like to provide education, information, and create a community to support people around having a better mental health. So this is not in the place of any clinical or psychotherapeutic advice or work. So if you see a therapist, please continue to do that. But come on by, and if you want some more information and education, I am here for you. And I just believe that having better mental health is so important. And I strongly encourage you to keep talking and keep working and keep healing.